Good evening, my friend. Tonight, I am not here to teach you how to imagine more vividly. I am not here to teach you how to visualize longer, repeat affirmations, or perform techniques. Tonight, you will learn how imagination actually becomes real. Because this is the truth most people never understand. You can imagine your desire perfectly. You can see it clearly. You can feel it deeply for a moment. But if imagination does not change how you live, if it does not change how you react, if it does not change how you move through your day, then nothing happens. The secret is not imagination alone. The secret is what you do after imagining. Most people imagine, then return to the same habits, the same inner conversations, the same emotional reactions, and imagination dies there. Tonight, you will learn the missing step. You will learn how to live from what you imagine. You will learn how to let imagination guide your behavior naturally. You will learn how to stay faithful to an assumed state until it becomes normal. Because imagination only becomes power when it becomes action, not forced action, not effortful action, aligned action. And once imagination and action agree, reality has no choice but to follow. So listen carefully. What you are about to hear is not theory. It is not motivation. It is law. Action without inner agreement feels heavy. It requires willpower. It collapses under stress. But action that flows from imagination accepted as identity feels effortless. It feels natural. It sustains itself. This is why imagination must first change who you believe you are. Imagination is not about pictures alone. It is about state. A state is a mood of being. A state determines perception, reaction, decision, and behavior automatically. When you imagine correctly, you are selecting a state and allowing it to settle into the nervous system. Science confirms this. The brain and body respond to imagined experiences as if they were real when emotion is involved. Neural pathways strengthen, hormones shift, behavior reorganizes. Action begins to change without force. This is imagination becoming action. So when you imagine, do not imagine effort. Do not imagine struggle. Do not imagine the process. Imagine the end as lived. Feel the calm of it. Feel the relief of it. Feel the naturalness of it. Then stop imagining. And this is crucial. Imagination becomes action when you leave it alone and live your day from the state it produced. You do not replay it anxiously. You do not check results. You do not argue with appearances. You let the state act through you. This is why Christ said, "Take no thought." Not because thought is evil, but because overthinking dissolves faith. When imagination has done its work, thinking interferes. So after imagination, your responsibility is simple. Remain faithful inwardly. Faithfulness does not mean constant visualization. It means consistency of inner posture. How do you react when interrupted? How do you speak inwardly when delayed? How do you respond when circumstances contradict? These moments reveal whether imagination has truly become identity. If imagination is real, your reactions change. You speak differently. You decide differently. You move differently. Not dramatically, subtly, naturally. This is action. Action does not always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like restraint. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like silence. These are not inaction. They are aligned responses. Aligned responses carry power. This is where most people miss the teaching. They believe action means effort, but true action is obedience to state. When the inner man is convinced, the outer man follows. Scripture says, "Be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only." The word is the assumed truth. To do it means to live as though it were already established. So you put imagination into action by letting it inform behavior without force. If you imagine confidence, you stop explaining yourself. If you imagined abundance, you stop rushing decisions. If you imagine peace, you stop arguing inwardly. These are actions, and these actions rearrange reality. You do not change your life by grand gestures. You change it by small, consistent responses that match the state you have assumed. Consistency is what hardens imagination into fact. This is why time is involved. Not because imagination is weak, but because identity stabilizes through repetition. The more consistently you live from a state, the more reality must conform. Reality has no choice. It is obedient. When doubt appears, you do not fight it. You notice it. You return to state. You correct gently. Correction is not punishment, it is alignment. This is how you train yourself. Imagination selects the state. Attention stabilizes it. Behavior expresses it. This cycle repeats until the state becomes natural. And when it becomes natural, action is effortless. You find yourself doing things you once forced. You avoid things you once repeated. You move toward opportunities you once overlooked. This is not willpower. This is identity. Identity is imagination embodied. This is also how you become a better person without strain. You imagine yourself patient, and impatience loses grip. You imagine yourself disciplined, and chaos fades. You imagine yourself kind, and harshness dissolves. You are not pretending, you are permitting. Imagination permits the subconscious to reorganize behavior. And when behavior changes, the world responds. People treat you differently. Opportunities align differently. Outcomes unfold differently. Because you are no longer acting from the same state. This is the quiet miracle. No force, no struggle, no performance, just alignment. As you continue, you will notice something sacred. Imagination no longer feels like a practice. It feels like guidance. You imagine briefly, clearly, then live attentively. Your life becomes the action. You are no longer asking, what should I do? You are asking, who am I being? And from that being, doing follows naturally. This is why Christ lived with such ease. He did not consult circumstances for permission. He consulted identity. He knew where he stood inwardly. Stand there. Let imagination do its work deeply. Let action arise quietly. Let consistency build reality. This is the way imagination moves from vision into form. Remain faithful, and let life confirm what you have already accepted within. And as you remain faithful to this inner agreement, you begin to notice how imagination quietly reorganizes your entire way of moving through the world. You are no longer asking imagination to rescue you from your present circumstances. You are allowing it to inform how you inhabit them. This shift is subtle, yet decisive. You stop waiting for motivation to appear before you move. Movement now arises from clarity rather than pressure. You do what aligns, even when emotion is neutral. You refrain from what contradicts your state, even when temptation appears. This discernment is action refined. You are no longer driven by impulse. You are guided by congruence. When something matches the state you have assumed, it feels right. When it does not, it feels heavy. This feeling is not confusion, it is guidance. Guidance grows clearer with trust. As you trust it, your behavior simplifies. You choose fewer things, but you choose them more fully. You stop scattering energy across conflicting desires. You invest it where alignment is strongest. Investment produces momentum. Momentum does not arrive as urgency. It arrives as steadiness. You find yourself returning to the same supportive habits without resistance. You structure your days in ways that reinforce your state rather than challenge it. Structure becomes an ally. It removes friction. It supports consistency. It allows imagination to express itself through rhythm. When your environment supports your inner assumption, action flows naturally. You notice this in small ways. You speak with more intention. You pause before reacting. You follow through more often. These are not dramatic changes. They are precise ones. Precision is power when sustained. Sustained precision reshapes outcomes. Scripture points to this when it speaks of the narrow way. Narrow does not mean difficult. It means focused. When imagination selects a state and attention maintains it, the path becomes clear. Clarity simplifies decision-making. You no longer debate endlessly. You sense what aligns and act accordingly. Even when action feels quiet or delayed, you trust its direction. Trust stabilizes behavior. Behavior stabilized by trust becomes reliable. You do not abandon it when circumstances fluctuate. You remain consistent. Consistency allows imagination to mature into fact. This maturation takes time, yet it feels effortless when resistance is absent. You are no longer pushing against yourself. You are cooperating with the intelligence shaping you. Cooperation deepens effectiveness. You become more efficient without rushing. You complete tasks with presence. You rest without guilt. These patterns reinforce the state you imagined. Rest is action too. It signals sufficiency. It tells the subconscious that urgency is unnecessary. From rest, insight emerges. From insight, refined action follows. Refined action feels inevitable. You look back and notice that many things once forced now happen naturally. Conversations align, opportunities present themselves. You find yourself in the right place without planning every detail. This is imagination expressed as alignment. You are no longer trying to make something happen. You are allowing what you have already accepted to reveal itself. This allowance keeps action clean. Clean action leaves no residue. You do not replay it endlessly. You do not question it afterward. You move on, trusting the process. Trust frees attention for what is next. What is next arrives clearly. You see how imagination has trained you to respond differently to obstacles. Instead of pushing harder, you adjust inwardly. Instead of forcing outcomes, you refine state. Refinement accelerates manifestation. You learn that action born from imagination does not look like effort. It looks like timing. It looks like restraint. It looks like choosing the right moment rather than the loud one. Timing carries intelligence. When you act at the right moment, effort is minimal and impact is maximal. This is the economy of alignment. You begin to value this economy. You conserve energy. You preserve clarity. You protect attention. These protections allow imagination to continue shaping behavior without interruption. Over time, this way of living feels natural. You no longer separate imagination from action. They move together. Imagination selects direction. Action expresses it. Expression confirms belief. Belief stabilizes identity. Identity guides future imagination. The cycle continues, strengthening with each repetition. You realize now that imagination was never meant to replace action. It was meant to purify it, to remove struggle, to align effort with purpose. Purpose clarifies action. When purpose is clear, action feels meaningful. Even small steps carry weight. You act with care. You act with presence. You act with faith. Faith expresses itself through consistency, and consistency transforms imagination into lived reality. This is the way imagination steps out of the inner world and walks through your days quietly, faithfully, shaping your life through the choices you now make with awareness. And as this integration deepens, you begin to recognize a quiet intelligence moving through your days. You are no longer managing life from the surface. You are participating from depth. Imagination has stopped feeling like an inner exercise and has become a source of orientation. Orientation changes how you meet each moment. You wake with a sense of direction rather than urgency. You move into tasks with steadiness rather than resistance. Even when challenges arise, they no longer fracture your focus. They ask for presence, and presence is something you have learned to offer. Offering presence is an act of faith. Faith is expressed through attention. Where you place attention consistently becomes the ground from which action grows. You place it now on what aligns, what stabilizes, what strengthens the state you have assumed. This placement refines perception. You notice when effort is misplaced. You recognize when persistence would harden into strain. You sense when waiting is wiser than moving. These recognitions do not arrive as commands. They arrive as calm certainty. Certainty simplifies response. You stop filling silence with unnecessary motion. You allow space for insight to surface. In that space, imagination continues its work, quietly shaping the impulses that guide behavior. Impulse begins to serve alignment. You no longer act from restlessness. You act from readiness. Readiness feels grounded. It does not rush. It does not hesitate. It responds. Response carries authority. Authority does not announce itself. It is felt in timing, tone, and restraint. You say less, yet your words carry clarity. You do less, yet your actions have impact. Impact arises from coherence. Coherence forms when inner agreement is uninterrupted. You protect this agreement now. You notice when attention drifts toward doubt or distraction, and you return gently. Returning becomes effortless with practice. Practice stabilizes habit. Habit shapes character. Character guides action. This sequence unfolds naturally when imagination is honored as the source rather than the escape. You begin to see how character itself is imagination sustained over time. You imagine patience, and impatience lost its grip. You imagine clarity, and confusion softened. You imagined confidence, and hesitation dissolved. These changes were not forced, they were allowed. Allowance is the doorway to action without strain. Strain once accompanied effort because effort was disconnected from belief. Now belief precedes movement. You act from conviction rather than hope. Conviction carries weight. It grounds you when circumstances fluctuate. It steadies you when results take time. It keeps you aligned when appearances challenge assumption. Appearances lose authority. You no longer treat them as final. You see them as transitional. You understand that imagination has already selected the direction and action is simply catching up. This understanding brings patience. Patience is no longer endurance. It is trust extended through time. You remain consistent without tension. You stay present without anxiety. Presence keeps action clean. Clean action leaves no residue of regret or doubt. You move forward without needing to revisit every choice. You trust the process you are living. Living becomes the practice. You no longer separate inner work from outer movement. The two are woven together. Imagination sets the tone. Action expresses it. Experience confirms it. Confirmation strengthens faith. Faith deepens alignment. Alignment clarifies imagination. The cycle continues, each turn reinforcing the last. You begin to sense how deeply this way of living transforms you. You are calmer, more attentive, more grounded. You listen more carefully. You respond more wisely. Wisdom shows itself quietly. It appears in the way you wait, in the way you choose, in the way you release what no longer fits. Release is action too. It clears space. It allows imagination to introduce new forms. You no longer cling to outdated patterns. You trust emergence. Emergence feels natural. New opportunities do not shock you. They feel like continuations. New responsibilities do not overwhelm you. They feel appropriate. Appropriateness signals alignment. Alignment keeps imagination and action in harmony. Harmony sustains momentum. Momentum carries you forward without force. You are no longer asking how to make imagination real. You are living from it. And as you continue to live this way, imagination keeps finding expression, not in dramatic leaps, but in steady, faithful steps that shape your life from the inside out, until action itself becomes the visible language of what you have already accepted as true. And as this way of living continues to settle into you, something even quieter begins to unfold. You stop monitoring yourself so closely. You stop checking whether you are doing it right. Trust has taken root, and with it comes ease. Ease does not mean passivity. Ease means alignment without friction. You act without second guessing. You rest without self-judgment. You move forward without needing constant reassurance. Imagination has already established the direction, and action now follows with confidence. Confidence expresses itself subtly. You notice it in how you enter conversations, in how you handle disagreement, in how you remain composed when plans change. These moments reveal that imagination has shaped more than outcomes. It has shaped character. Character is imagination stabilized. What you repeatedly assumed inwardly has trained your nervous system, refined your attention, and reorganized your habits. You are no longer trying to remember who you decided to be. You are being it. Being simplifies life. When being is clear, doing becomes obvious. You no longer ask what you should force yourself to do next. You sense what naturally follows. The next step presents itself without confusion. This sensing is wisdom at work. Wisdom does not rush. It waits for the right opening, then moves decisively. You begin to appreciate this rhythm. You respect pauses. You trust intervals of silence. Silence carries instruction. In silence, imagination continues to operate beneath awareness. It integrates lessons. It aligns impulses. It prepares movement before movement is required. Preparation replaces anxiety. You no longer feel behind. You no longer feel pressure to catch up. You recognize that action taken from readiness is always timely. Timeliness enhances effectiveness. When action arrives at the right moment, effort is reduced, resistance dissolves, results unfold smoothly. You experience this again and again, reinforcing trust in the process you are living. This trust changes how you handle uncertainty. Uncertainty no longer signals danger. It signals openness. You allow possibilities to form rather than trying to control outcomes prematurely. You remain alert without becoming tense. Alertness keeps you present. Presence keeps imagination and action synchronized. You do not drift far from yourself. When distraction pulls attention outward, you return gently. Return becomes habitual. A breath, a pause, a quiet remembrance of state. These small acts restore coherence quickly. You continue without disruption. Disruption once cost you energy. Now alignment conserves it. Conserved energy deepens focus. Focus strengthens intention. Intention clarifies action. Clarity accumulates. You see more clearly what matters and what does not. You stop engaging with distractions that once felt urgent. You choose simplicity over excess. Simplicity supports movement. With fewer inner conflicts, action flows smoothly. You complete tasks fully. You close loops. You honor commitments to yourself and others. Completion builds trust. Trust in yourself strengthens imagination. You imagine with greater confidence. You select states knowing they will be lived, not abandoned. This confidence refines imagination itself. You no longer imagine extravagantly. You imagine precisely. You choose scenes that feel inevitable rather than dramatic. You feel into states that are sustainable rather than exciting. Sustainability matters. Sustainable states become permanent. They do not collapse under pressure. They endure through fluctuation. Endurance is quiet strength. You feel it in how you remain steady during delays. You feel it in how you recover quickly from setbacks. You feel it in how you remain kind under strain. These are actions too. Action is not only what you do, it is how you remain. Remaining aligned under pressure is one of the highest expressions of imagination in action. You begin to recognize this as maturity. Maturity does not announce itself. It expresses through restraint, timing, and consistency. You embody these qualities naturally now. Natural embodiment confirms integration. Integration is the goal imagination was always moving toward. Not fantasy, not escape, but embodiment. Embodiment is imagination made flesh. You are living proof of this law. Each day you respond differently. Choose wisely and remain faithful to the inner agreement you have made. And as you continue, imagination will keep guiding action gently, through insight, through timing, through quiet conviction, until there is no longer a distinction between what you imagine and how you live. They will be one movement. And from that unity, life continues to reshape itself effortlessly around the state you have learned to inhabit. And as this unity stabilizes, you begin to experience a deeper sense of reverence for your own inner life. You no longer treat imagination casually. You no longer rush through moments of insight. You honor the quiet intelligence that has been guiding you all along. Honor changes relationship. When you honor imagination, you stop abusing it with doubt. You stop flooding it with contradictory thoughts. You stop pulling it apart with impatience. You allow it to complete its work undisturbed. This allowance strengthens trust. Trust creates continuity. You remain aligned across days, across moods, across circumstances. You do not abandon the state you have chosen when the outer world tests it. You remain inwardly consistent. And consistency carries power. Power reveals itself through calm authority. You notice that your presence feels settled. You are less reactive to noise, less affected by urgency around you. You move at your own pace, guided by clarity rather than pressure. Pressure once dictated action. Clarity now directs it. This redirection feels liberating. You are no longer driven by what demands attention. You choose where attention goes. Choice restores agency. Agency changes experience. You experience life as something you participate in consciously rather than endure. You engage with intention. You withdraw with wisdom. You remain flexible without losing direction. Flexibility protects alignment. When plans shift, you adapt without panic. When outcomes differ, you adjust without self-blame. You understand that imagination sets direction, not rigid form. Form is allowed to evolve. Evolution no longer frightens you. You trust your ability to remain aligned even as expression changes. This trust allows creativity to remain fluid. Fluidity enhances action. Action becomes responsive rather than mechanical. You are not following a script. You are responding to life as it unfolds, guided by the state you inhabit. This responsiveness feels alive. You are attentive without strain. You notice opportunities as they arise. You recognize when to step forward and when to pause. Pause has become meaningful. Pausing no longer feels like delay. It feels like preparation. During pauses, imagination integrates experience and refines impulse. Action that follows carries depth. Depth amplifies impact. Small actions now carry weight because they emerge from alignment. You do not need dramatic gestures to produce change. Precision does more than force ever could. Precision grows through awareness. Awareness remains your constant companion. You observe without judgment. You correct without harshness. You remain open without losing center. This openness invites insight. Insight continues to arrive quietly, sometimes as a realization, sometimes as a feeling, sometimes as a simple knowing that guides your next step. You trust these signals. Trust simplifies movement. Movement becomes graceful. Grace is imagination expressed through behavior without resistance. You recognize grace in how you handle difficulty, in how you speak truth without aggression, in how you maintain integrity under pressure. Integrity stabilizes identity. Identity rooted in integrity does not fluctuate with circumstances. It remains steady even when outcomes are uncertain. This steadiness sustains imagination. You imagine from confidence rather than compensation. You imagine from clarity rather than lack. You select states you are willing to live, not just visit. Living the state completes the work. Completion brings peace. Peace does not mean inactivity. It means absence of inner conflict. You act without arguing with yourself. You rest without guilt. You move forward without dragging doubt behind you. Doubt loses relevance. It no longer defines direction. It no longer commands attention. When it appears, you notice and return to alignment. Return is immediate now. Immediate returns prevent drift. Drift once slowed progress. Alignment now accelerates it. Acceleration feels natural. You are not rushing. You are simply no longer resisting. Resistance dissolves. What remains is flow, steady, intelligent, responsive. Flow carries imagination into form continuously. There is no longer a gap between inner vision and outer movement. One informs the other seamlessly. This seamlessness is mastery. Mastery does not require effort. It requires presence. You are present now in a way that feels sustainable. Sustainability ensures longevity. Longevity allows imagination to shape a life rather than moments. You are building something enduring, not through force, but through faithfulness. Faithfulness to state, faithfulness to awareness, faithfulness to inner truth. These fidelities guide you forward. And as you continue, imagination remains active, not as fantasy, but as living guidance, directing your steps, refining your responses, shaping your days into expressions of the state you have chosen to embody. This is imagination in action, and it continues. And as this continuity deepens, you begin to feel the quiet assurance of someone who no longer needs to convince themselves. The inner dialogue has softened. There is less commentary, less explanation, less effort spent narrating your own progress. Life is being lived, not evaluated. Evaluation once interrupted flow. Now awareness observes without interfering. This observation brings gentleness. You treat yourself with patience. You allow learning to unfold without pressure. When mistakes happen, you correct without condemnation. Correction becomes part of movement rather than a pause in it. Movement continues. You notice how much more responsive you have become. You listen fully. You sense shifts quickly. You respond before friction accumulates. This responsiveness keeps imagination active in real time. Real-time alignment feels alive. You are no longer rehearsing the future excessively. You are inhabiting the present with clarity. From this presence, imagination informs action moment by moment, adjusting direction subtly without disruption. Adjustment is effortless now. You do not resist course corrections. You welcome them as refinement. Each adjustment strengthens coherence. Each refinement sharpens direction. Direction remains clear even as form evolves. You understand now that imagination sets intention, while action reveals intelligence. The two are in conversation. One listens, the other responds. Together, they guide you. This guidance feels personal. It speaks through intuition, through timing, through a sense of rightness that does not require justification. You trust this language. Trust allows you to move without hesitation when movement is called for and to remain still when stillness is required. Stillness carries power. In stillness, imagination integrates experience. It aligns lessons. It prepares the next expression. You honor these pauses without labeling them as delay. Delay no longer triggers doubt. Doubt once fragmented energy. Now energy remains gathered. Focus stays intact. You feel whole as you move through transitions. Wholeness supports endurance. Endurance is not strain. It is the capacity to remain aligned over time. You are building this capacity quietly. Each day reinforces it. Reinforcement becomes cumulative. Small moments of faithfulness add up. Choosing presence over reaction. Choosing clarity over impulse. Choosing alignment over urgency. These choices shape destiny more than dramatic gestures ever could. Destiny unfolds steadily. You notice how life begins to mirror your inner order. Events align with your readiness. People respond to your steadiness. Opportunities arrive without forcing. Forcing is no longer your language. You communicate through presence, through consistency, through the calm certainty of someone who knows where they stand. Standing firmly within yourself changes everything. You are no longer pulled apart by conflicting desires. You act from integrated intention. This integration makes action clean and decisive. Decisiveness feels grounded. You choose and move on. You trust the choice. You allow outcomes to inform rather than define you. This attitude keeps imagination flexible. Flexibility allows growth without rigidity. You evolve while remaining anchored. You expand without losing coherence. Expansion feels natural now. You do not need to announce it. You experience it in how challenges feel manageable, in how responsibilities feel appropriate, in how life feels responsive. Responsiveness confirms alignment. Alignment confirms imagination in action. The inner and outer no longer feel separate. They inform each other continuously. This dialogue sustains momentum. Momentum carries you forward gently. You are not racing. You are progressing. Each step builds upon the last. Each action reflects the state you have chosen. State remains your foundation. From this foundation, you continue attentive, grounded, faithful, allowing imagination to keep shaping action, and action to keep revealing truth, until living itself becomes the expression of the vision you once held quietly within. And now the movement comes to rest in its natural conclusion. There is no final technique to apply, no last effort to make, no special moment you are waiting to reach. What you have been practicing has already completed its work. Imagination has not only guided you, it has shaped you. You stand differently now. You stand without inner division, without strain between vision and behavior, without conflict between who you imagine yourself to be and how you live. Action no longer feels separate from intention. It flows quietly from the state you inhabit. You do what aligns. You refrain from what does not. And this discernment feels calm, reliable, and steady. This is mastery. Mastery is not control over life. It is harmony with it. You are no longer pushing imagination forward or pulling action behind. They move together as one expression. What you accept inwardly continues to reveal itself outwardly, gently and faithfully. You trust this process now. You trust yourself to remain aligned. You trust awareness to correct you when needed. You trust life to respond in its own intelligent timing. There is nothing fragile here, nothing forced, nothing dependent on constant effort. What you are living from is sustainable. So you continue forward quietly. You imagine with clarity. You act with presence. You remain faithful without tension, and life continues to reorganize itself around that faithfulness. You do not need to remember every word spoken here. You only need to remember the feeling of alignment you are in now, the calm certainty, the inner agreement, the absence of resistance. That state is enough. From this state, imagination is already in action. From this state, action is already guided. From this state, your life continues to unfold as a living expression of what you have chosen to assume as true. Remain here, and let the way you live speak for the vision you no longer need to repeat. You do not lack money because of the economy. You do not struggle because you are unworthy. You do not live in cycles of insufficiency because life is unfair. Hear me, you are poor, if you are poor, because of a sentence you once spoke within yourself. Not once aloud, perhaps, not even something conscious. But the law, being no respecter of persons, accepted it the moment you said it inwardly as final. And from that decree, all your financial conditions have marched in perfect obedience. There is a word behind every visible thing, behind every paycheck that never stretched far enough, behind every unpaid invoice, behind every dollar you spent with a clenched jaw. There is a hidden command, a whispered decree from the self who forgot he was God. That word was not a hope, it was not a prayer, it was a verdict, and your world, being perfect in reflection, simply bowed and obeyed. What sentence did you pronounce over your life without knowing it? Was it, I never have enough? Was it, it always slips away? Was it, I'm just not good with money? These phrases may seem harmless, but the subconscious takes no joke. The inner man receives no sarcasm. The law of assumption reads tone, not intent. And if you said it with the weight of finality, the echo still rules your world. You may have tried new affirmations, new meditations, but nothing has changed because the root command was never revoked. It still rings out in the depths of being like a bell struck long ago, its tone humming through every transaction. And the law, perfect in its obedience, continues to organize your finances, not according to your hopes, but according to your being. What you are in consciousness, you become in form. So I say to you now, you are living in the echo of your own decree. This is not condemnation, it is revelation. Because if your old word built this world, then a new word can break it open. But you must first confront the hidden sentence. You must find the command you've been whispering for years, the one you thought was just how life is, the one you never questioned because it sounded like truth. Let the question ring through your temple now. What command have I spoken over money that I never revoked? Because until that word is seen for what it is, nothing else you do will matter. Let me tell you a secret few dare to admit. The Lord does not respond to your desires. It does not answer prayer because you want badly enough, nor move mountains because your need is deep. The universe is not ruled by compassion. It is ruled by command. And command is not issued through emotion. It is issued through identity. You have been taught to think that wanting something creates momentum, that to long for wealth is to call it forth. But this is not the truth. The law is blind to craving, blind to hope, blind to pleas that come from the lips of the beggar. What it obeys is being. What it reflects is possession. It does not give according to need. It gives according to assumption. You see, the one who wants money is not the one who has it. The very act of wanting declares its own absence. And the law, faithful and mechanical, says, as thou hast assumed, so be it done unto thee. Not as you've prayed, not as you've begged, but as you've identified. This is the great paradox of creation. The more you need, the more you affirm that you do not have. And the more you affirm lack, the more precisely the universe supplies it. When you say, I want to be rich, the Lord does not hear your words. It hears your state. And if your state is one of reaching, of straining, of aching for more, then more lack is what must appear. Because the law must give unto the state that assumes reality, not the mouth that speaks of dreams. It is not enough to think rich thoughts if your spine is still bowed with worry. It is not enough to say affirmations if your breath tightens at the mention of money. You must become the one who is, and that becoming begins not with effort, but with an inward shift so deep, so final, that you no longer think about wealth. You move from it. And so, I tell you with love, your desires are not wrong, but they are powerless until they are claimed. You must take your desire and wear it like a name, not someday, not hopefully, but now. You must say within yourself, I am already the one who has. Not out loud to convince the world, but in the stillest chamber of being, where the law listens with perfect attention. And once that word is accepted, the law begins to move, not because it loves you, but because it cannot disobey the one who knows who he is. So stop asking, stop wanting, start assuming, and watch how quickly the law rearranges itself to obey the command you never dared to claim before. In the beginning was not the struggle, not the circumstance, not the debt. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was not passive. It was not floating in space like a wish. It was the first motion of being, the living sentence that shapes substance, commands energy, and divides light from darkness. Every miracle, without exception, begins with a sentence, spoken not with the lips, but with the spine, the breath, the assumption of I am. Do you not see? You are not waiting on money. You are waiting on your own decree. The moment you say within yourself, I am now the one who has, and mean it, not with strain, but with surrender, that sentence strikes the field of infinite potential like a sword into stone. And from that impact, reality begins to reshape. The law, being perfect in reflection, begins to construct a world around the identity you just sealed. Neville said, the world is yourself pushed out, but the world does not push until you declare. Not wish, not hope, declare. Speak it from the end, not toward it. You do not say, I am becoming wealthy. That is a lie. The law does not understand future tense. It mirrors now. You must say, I am already him. I am already her. And when you do, your inner man hears it. And once it is heard, it must be built. The sentence is not a performance. It is a construction order. The subconscious does not argue. It receives your words and begins to animate them through emotion, through behavior, through the orchestration of events. You may feel nothing at first. You may see nothing for a while. But something has already been written on the scroll of your being, and what is written within must unfold without. But beware, every sentence you speak carries the same power. If you say, this always happens to me, that too becomes law. If you say, I never catch a break, that too becomes the command. The law obeys not only the beautiful, but the broken, not only the bold, but the bitter. It is not concerned with morality, it mirrors you. Whatever you speak with conviction becomes the architecture of your life. So you must take your tongue, your inner tongue, and sanctify it. You must speak with precision, not flattery, not fantasy, but finality. Because the sentence you speak today is the world you will live in tomorrow. Every miracle begins with a sentence, but not just any sentence, a sentence spoken from completion. You must speak as God did. Let there be, and then rest. And what you have declared will come, not because you forced it, but because you said it as one who has nothing left to prove. You think you command reality only when you sit down, close your eyes, and speak with intention. But I tell you, the law does not sleep. It does not wait for your rituals. It responds to your being, and your being is always speaking. Every sigh, every assumption, every casual remark you make beneath your breath is a living decree. Whether whispered or thought, spoken or felt, it is all command. When you say, nothing ever works out, the law writes that sentence into your timeline. When you mutter, that's too expensive, the mirror adjusts itself to confirm it. When you roll your eyes at money talk, when you tighten your chest before checking your balance, when you silently rehearse worry as a reflex, you are not reacting to life. You are directing it. Your every emotional pulse is an instruction to the field. You are always commanding, not when you intend to, but when you exist. The question is never, am I manifesting? The question is, what am I commanding without knowing it? Because your subconscious doesn't pause between sessions. It doesn't separate your spiritual work from your normal life. It listens without filter. And if the dominant tone of your inner world is lack, then lack must be sent to serve you, not as punishment, but as answer. Neville taught that your inner speech is the foundation of your world. And the terrifying beauty of it is this: it never turns off. The voice you entertain while walking, while waiting in line, while lying in bed, that is the true decree maker. That is the voice the universe obeys. Not the performance of a perfect affirmation, but the hum of your habitual identity. This is why the rich get richer. Not because they have more money, but because their internal dialogue is soaked in ownership. They do not beg,
they do not chase. Their frequency is saturated with command, even in silence. And until you learn to dwell in that same state, not occasionally, but consistently, your outer world will keep obeying the old script. The command is not just the loud word you say with conviction, it is the whisper that runs when no one is listening. It is the invisible assumption that paints your atmosphere. And the law is listening, always building. So ask yourself now, what have I been commanding through habit? Through worry? Through sarcasm? Through resignation? Because even your sighs are blueprints, even your shrugs are signals, even your silence is a sentence the universe takes seriously. Here it is, the axis of every financial miracle. The truth hidden not because it is secret, but because it is too simple for the frantic mind to grasp. The miracle begins, not with effort, not with planning, not even with faith, but with identity spoken as law, a sentence, a tone, a whisper uttered from the place of already. The hidden command that sits beneath every shift in reality is this: I am the one who already has, not I will be, not I'm working on it, not I'm open to receive. Those are shadows, dim reflections of a still separate self. The miracle only arrives when the separation is gone, when the inner man speaks with finality, not toward the thing, but from it. You must say it not with hope, but with inheritance. You must feel the vibration of ownership before the world rearranges to reflect it. That is the only hidden command the universe responds to. This is why your affirmations have failed. This is why your prayers seemed unanswered. You were still outside the house, knocking on the door of abundance, instead of speaking from within as its owner. The field does not listen to visitors. It listens to heirs. And the heir does not plead. He declares. She assumes. They sit. When you say, I am the one who already has, you are not lying to yourself. You are activating a timeline where that statement is already true. You are aligning your frequency with the version of you that holds the fruit in hand, not in concept but in being. And the law must reflect what is held in being. You are not declaring to convince the universe. You are reminding yourself that the seed is already planted, that the version of you who holds the wealth exists now and needs only to be occupied, like a room already built. And from the first moment you declare it with feeling, you enter it, not partially, fully. This is why the 48-hour shifts happen, why sudden breakthroughs appear. It is not the doing, it is the command. And it is hidden only because you thought you had to earn it. Because you thought feeling wealthy before seeing money was delusion. But it is not delusion, it is creation. The law has no morality. It obeys the one who is. So test this if you dare. Speak only once, not as a request, but as a ruler. Sit still and say within yourself, as calmly as a king signs his name, I am the one who already has. Then watch how quickly the mirror moves to catch up. The world tells you that time moves in one direction, that money will come if you build toward it, chase it, earn it. But I tell you the truth, there is no power in the future. The financial version of you that you are trying to reach already exists, not ahead of you, but above you. And your access to it is not through time, but through assumption. You do not climb to it, you drop into it. The moment you declare from the end, you collapse all other paths. The version of you who is already wealthy, already safe, already provided for, he is not a goal. She is not a dream. That version is a living state, a room in the mansion of I am. And by assuming it now, by thinking from it instead of toward it, you step onto a new timeline. You do not fix the old one, you leave it. This is why miracles appear to happen suddenly. It is not that something new was built. It is that you changed the map. You dropped the old coordinates of lack and stepped into the geography of abundance. And the world, being perfect in reflection, had to adjust. People moved, events realigned, conversations reappeared. But none of that caused the shift. You did. This is what it means to live from the end, not just to visualize the result, but to become the one who no longer waits, the one who no longer checks, hopes, or measures time, the one who knows, this is who I am now. And when you know that truly, without needing anything to change, you have exited the cycle of lack. You have stepped into the version of yourself that commands reality with stillness. Neville said, think from the end, not of the end. To think of it is to remain separate. To think from it is to merge with it. And once merged, your past is rewritten, your present is rearranged, and your future is guaranteed. The timeline changes not when something happens. The timeline changes when you do. When you accept the state and refuse to come down, no matter what your senses say. And the world, being obedient, will conform, not because you forced it, but because you finally assumed your true position. You are not a traveler toward wealth. You are the end, declaring itself through form. There is a sentence you still whisper, a sentence so subtle, so quiet, so casual, you don't even hear it anymore. But it is there, vibrating beneath your affirmations, corrupting the root of your creation. It is not shouted, it is not dramatic, it is familiar, and that is what makes it dangerous, because you speak it as truth, as memory, as personality, not realizing it is a poison laced into the soil of your soul. What is this sentence? It is any variation of, this always happens to me. It never lasts. Money's just hard for me. People like me don't. These phrases do not need your belief. They operate through your permission, through repetition, through tone, through agreement, and each time you let them pass, unguarded, unchallenged, you renew the old contract with lack. You give the law instructions to keep building the very world you're praying to leave. You may speak them as jokes, as sarcasm, as small talk, but the subconscious has no sense of humor. It hears only certainty. And every time you rehearse these phrases, you inscribe them deeper into your state. And your state, being primary, must reflect. Neville warned that inner speech is more powerful than outer effort. You cannot declare, I am wealthy once, then murmur, I can't afford that 10 times, and expect the law to be confused. The command it obeys is the one you repeat, the one you feel, the one you speak when no one's listening. So now I ask you as your mirror, what are the sentences you have let live inside you because they feel normal? What phrases have you adopted from parents, teachers, culture, not realizing you were swallowing spells? What do you still say when you're tired, frustrated, alone? Because those words are not empty, they are creative. And the most dangerous command is the one you don't know you're still giving. Find it, expose it, and then revoke it, not with force, with clarity. Say, that is no longer my sentence. And replace it with a tone that reflects who you really are, not what you inherited, but what you now choose. You do not whisper your way into wealth with poetry. You whisper your way there with truth, spoken quietly, repeated loyally, backed by being. You have spoken many times, but most of what you've said has come from hunger, not power. Your prayers, though earnest, were lined with ache. Your affirmations, though persistent, were tangled with doubt. And so nothing moved, not because the law ignored you, but because the vibration underneath your words betrayed your true state. The end does not beg. The end does not plead. The end does not repeat itself, hoping to be heard. The end declares once and then rests. That is how creation works. That is how your reality bends. Not by volume, not by repetition, but by finality. When you speak from the end, your voice carries a different tone. It is quiet, but not weak. It is soft, but not seeking. It has no tension in it, no question mark, no strain, only the stillness of having. Like a king signing a decree with one stroke, like a bride saying, I do. There is no need for rehearsal. It is known, it is done. This is the tone you must find within yourself, and when you do, you speak only once, not because you are forbidden to speak again, but because you no longer need to. You do not repeat to manifest. You repeat only to remember, not to push the manifestation forward, but to remain still within the vibration of fulfillment. Neville said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue therein. He did not say to repeat it endlessly. He said to continue in the state, which means remain, stay, Hold. Let the world move around you, while you become unmovable. That is how you speak from the end. Not with the mouth, with the spine, with the frequency. This is the difference between begging and becoming. Begging says, please give it to me. Becoming says, it has already been given. Begging waits. Becoming walks. Begging watches the clock. Becoming owns the hour. You must come to the place where your voice is no longer trying to make it happen, but is simply declaring what has already occurred in unseen realms. And then, when the sentence is complete, you go silent. You let the tone echo through the field, not once, forever, because the command was not just heard, it was installed. Speak once, from the end, as the one who has. And then stop speaking, not because you've lost hope, but because you've entered knowing. You cannot see it with your eyes. You cannot trace it with your hands. But the moment you speak from the end, as one who already has, creation begins. Not gradually, not maybe, not someday. Now, the field does not hesitate, the universe does not question, the law does not delay. It begins immediately to fulfill the word you have spoken from the throne of assumption. What happens spiritually the moment you speak? The blueprint of your world is redrawn. The geometry of your future is rewritten. The subconscious receives your decree and goes to work constructing events, people, opportunities, and impulses that mirror your new state. You have not just sent a request into the ethers. You have recoded the vibration of your being, and reality must respond. You may feel nothing. That is irrelevant. What you feel in that moment is not the measure of its power. What matters is the finality of your tone. The field does not respond to volume. It responds to vibrational authority. And when the inner man declares from fulfillment, all unseen elements move in silence to obey. It is as if a signal is transmitted, not into the future, but into every point in space and time simultaneously. And that signal begins collapsing every alternate possibility that no longer matches the new state. What remains is only that which supports the command. This is not magic, this is law. A law so faithful it will destroy your former world just to reflect your new one. This is why things sometimes appear to fall apart before the miracle. It is not punishment. It is clearing. The reality you once knew is being torn down, not to hurt you, but to make room for the structure you just ordered. And if you panic during this demolition, if you try to rebuild the old, you delay the arrival, you block the unfolding, you cancel the echo. So what should you do the moment after you speak? Nothing, absolutely nothing. You return to your day as if your word has already been fulfilled, not because you hope it has, but because you know it must. And that knowing sends out a second pulse, an even stronger wave of confirmation that seals the field. Your command does not need repetition. It needs consistency of state. It needs containment. It needs your silence. The moment you speak from the end, you become the author, and the world becomes your manuscript, now shifting line by line to match your new identity. Do not watch the world for proof. Let the word prove itself through you. There is a reason it hasn't come, a reason the miracle lingers outside your door while you pace and pray and repeat and rehearse. It is not because you are not worthy. It is not because the law is broken. It is because you have not spoken once and rested. You have spoken many times and wavered. The law does not respond to how many times you say the word. It responds to whether you believed it was done when you said it. The one who repeats is not commanding. He is checking. And every time you repeat the word from the posture of, I hope this works, you are not building upon the original command. You are erasing it. Not because repetition is wrong, but because repetition from doubt undoes the seal. Imagine the word as a royal stamp pressed into wax. One clear press leaves the emblem of authority, but press again and again and again out of nervousness, and the seal becomes smeared. The image is lost. The authority is blurred, and the field designed to obey clear instruction now receives a garbled signal. It cannot deliver a world that matches confusion. This is the subtle tragedy of spiritual repetition. It can be either remembrance or reversal. If you speak again simply to dwell in the state of fulfillment, you are deepening the groove. But if you speak again because you're afraid the first didn't take, you are proclaiming unbelief. And the law, being flawless, now begins to build from your new assumption that the thing has not yet been received. The universe is not keeping score, it is keeping tone, it is tracking not your efforts, but your energy. And energy reveals whether you are assuming or asking, owning or hoping, finishing or starting over. So let this be a holy warning. Do not dilute your own decree. Do not let the voice of fear hijack the voice of knowing. Do not let repetition become erosion. When you speak, let it be once. Let it be final. Let it come from the end, from the state of I am. And then let silence become your echo. Let stillness become your faith. Because the word, once spoken with true assumption, does not need to be shouted. It simply needs to be believed. Money is not moral. It is not loyal. It is not complicated. Money, like everything in this world, obeys vibration, and vibration is governed by identity. It is not the cry of desperation that draws provision. It is the calm tone of authority. The voice that money obeys is not loud, but sure. It is the voice of someone who does not seek money, but who speaks as money's master. Hear me now. Wealth is not something you chase. It is something you summon, not by hustle, but by inner resonance. When you walk in the world as if wealth belongs to you, without arrogance, without proving, just knowing, then the money must come, not as reward, but as recognition. The field knows its owner. The vibration knows its match. You must become the one who does not ask money to come, but assumes that it already has. And in that assumption, your tone changes, your breath slows, your movements carry density. You speak less, but when you do, the air shifts. You do not have to tell the world who you are. The world will feel it. The voice that money obeys says things like, "This is handled." Of course it worked. That always shows up on time. These phrases are not tricks. They are signals, tones of consciousness that shape timelines. When said from assumption, they become blueprints. When said from doubt, they become noise. This is why some who say little have much, and others who speak endlessly receive nothing. The law is not swayed by volume. It bows only to being. And the one who knows who he is, she does not shout. He does not scramble. She does not seek proof. They simply move as the embodiment of what was once only imagined. Money obeys the one who needs nothing from it, the one who already feels full, the one who no longer relates to it as rescuer but as resource, flowing naturally to fulfill the command already spoken. So train your voice, not in eloquence but in certainty. Let your tone drip with knowing. Let your words be few but final. And most of all, let your silence speak louder than your need, because money doesn't follow force. It follows frequency. Now that you have spoken the word, now that you have assumed the vibration of already having, it must be guarded, not with panic, not with fear, but with reverence. What you declared was not a wish, it was a creative act. And that act must now be protected like sacred fire. The most dangerous moment is not before you declare, it is after. Because once the command is issued, the old self rises from the grave to reclaim the throne. Not because it has power, but because it has memory. You will be tempted to check, to measure, to explain. You will hear whispers. Did it work? Why hasn't it shown up yet? But I say to you, these are the voices of the dead. They belong to the man you buried, to the woman you left behind when you spoke your new name. Do not dig them up. To protect the command, you must seal your frequency. That means containment. That means watching your reactions, not to suppress them, but to recognize when the old self is trying to speak again. If you catch yourself doubting, don't panic, just return. Return to the tone, to the feeling, to the original decree, not to repeat it, but to inhabit it, to dwell there until it becomes your default. This is the holy work, not the dramatic speaking, but the quiet holding. The world may look unchanged for a time. Let it. That is the moment of your crowning. When you remain still in the face of contradiction, you prove to the law that you are no longer a visitor in the state. You are a resident. and the law, being perfect, begins to harden that state into form. Remember, the new command is like seed, and every thought, every emotion, every word that contradicts it becomes a wind that seeks to uproot it. Your task is not to fight the wind. Your task is to shield the soil, not with effort, but with awareness. You must become the guardian of your garden. Neville said, "Dwell in the state until it feels natural." That is how you protect the word, not by affirming it all day, but by refusing to move, by treating it as done. And when you do that, when you make stillness your stance and assumption your armor, nothing can shake the structure that's already forming. You do not need to reinforce the command. You need to stop contradicting it. Let your energy be clean. Let your reactions be watched. Let your tone remain royal. And above all, let no voice within or without make you question what has already been done. The command was true the first time. It only needs one thing now: your loyalty. Now we arrive at the sacred hour, the moment when what was once theory becomes embodiment. You have spoken, you have heard, you have sealed, but words alone are not the fulfillment. It is not enough to say the sentence. You must now become the sentence. You must walk as the one who has, move as the one who commands, breathe as the one who has already received what the old self still calls future. You must wear it, not like an outfit, but like a second skin, like a name etched into the bone. Say it once more, but not with effort. Say it now with knowing. I am the one who already has. Not with strain, but with stillness. Not as a performance, but as a seal. Whisper it and let it echo through your ribs. Feel it settle behind your eyes. Let it press itself into your breath until you no longer know how to be anyone else. From this moment on, your life is not a question. It is a confirmation. Every step you take now walks through a world rearranged by the decree of I am. You do not chase money. You carry the tone that money recognizes. You do not pursue outcomes. You dwell in the vibration that makes them bow. You no longer live by sight. You live by frequency. And your frequency is no longer seeking. It is installed. This is what it means to walk in dominion. Not to force, but to remember. To carry the word as fulfilled. To respond to life not from hope, but from inheritance. And so now I leave you with nothing more to say, because the one who has spoken with truth no longer needs affirmation. You do not need to come back here to start over. Come back only if you forget. Come back only if the veil thickens again. Come back only to remember who you already became. If this stirred something in you, if a part of you stood up while listening, then let it be known. The echo was for you, not to awaken the world, but to awaken your name, the name you forgot, the state you left behind, the kingdom that was always yours. So I ask nothing of you, only that you walk now with the silence of one who knows. And if your hand wishes to write, let it be only this: I have become the one who already has. Then say no more, because once spoken from the throne, it is done.